Hustle Brothers meets the Haste Club. My name's Liam, and then we have a special guest today. We have been invited to talk to the Haste Club. How are you getting on today?
Yeah, well, look where I'm at, man. Getting along pretty good. I'm kayaking on the river. That's kind of how we do things here at Haste Club. I always just go live somewhere out in nature, and today, yeah, we're back on my river, or not my river, but the river, and enjoying the view and talking Rocket Lab.
Yeah, I find this fascinating because, look, I live in Ireland and Reese lives in the centre of London. So we wouldn't be used to the likes of this. So I just think this brings a whole different approach to the whole subject. It's a lot more relatable to the everyday retail investor. I want to introduce ourselves as the Hustle Brothers. So what we do here, we more or less bring the everyday retail investor up to date on previously everything eVTOL. We've now entered this space in Rocket Lab under the help of both yourself, Chris, and Francisco Ramirez. For anyone that hasn't followed them, guys, make sure to check them out on X. Everything Rocket Lab is covered every single day. And it's a bit like our philosophy. Make sure you're there every day for the retail investor. We're going to get into when we originally invested in Rocket Lab, how we started off. We're going to get into everything about Haste, all about the military side of Rocket Lab. And then we've got some nice, interesting information that Christopher has when it comes to human spaceflight on Neutron. Anyway, Reece, do you want to give a bit of an overview of who you are, what you represent?
Yeah, so I'm Reese. I'm one of the Hustle Brothers. So obviously, but me and Liam have actually been invested in Rocket Lab. It basically all started, to give everyone a bit of a background. We were actually in Virgin Galactic at the time, and that didn't go too well. Let's put it that way. But luckily,
never heard no Rocket Lab investor say that.
Yeah. But you learn from your mistakes, and it was actually whilst we were invested in Virgin that we actually discovered Rocket Lab. And when we say that two companies couldn't be, we'd be putting it as an understatement. Like you had one that had solid fundamentals, you had one that was more on a dream. But we liked the thought of the next edge, and we invested into Rocket. We were obviously looking at it more from the commercial side of view. So now the fact that we're here with Chris and we've sort of spoke a little bit about the Haste, I felt like we needed to show the people and let everyone know, because I think it's a bit of the unsung hero of the Rocket Lab stock at the moment. It's got a massive side and there's a lot of information to uncover. And I think when it was coming out at the time, there was a lot of breadcrumbs that were being dotted around. And I think a lot of people have seen the information and then just went past it. But the thing that Chris and Francisco have done is that they've brought these breadcrumbs, these dots together, and they've sort of shown us that we couldn't see it. And I think it's do it now with Haste Club, and we'll be doing this week.
Yeah, I think it is quite interesting that we have brought taken us under its wing. We are the retail investor that we have particularly been actively researching Rocket Lab for the last 6 months because we were focusing on eVTOL so heavily. And then over the past 2 months, we have had the likes of Christopher steering us in the right direction. Christopher, it is so nice to meet you. Do you want to give a little bit of an introduction about yourself and what got you involved in Rocket Lab?
Well, first of all, it's hilarious what Reese said about Virgin Galactic because guilty. I did the same thing.
Yes.
As an early investor, I did, man. I did. As an early investor, I didn't know what I was doing. So of course, I was everyone on YouTube, and at the time, it seemed like a really smart play. But I learned a valuable lesson, and that is, if you're going to invest in anything, you really need to just do your own research or hire a financial advisor. So obviously, if I was in Virgin, I was in space, and I just kind of stumbled upon Rocket Lab, and I got in early when it was still a SPAC. It was called ACQ.
Oh, you got in as it was expected, did you?
I did. That was early on. I had a Weeble account.
Okay, yeah.
Again, you learn as you go. And yeah, I had a substantial amount. And for one reason or another, when they finally switched over to Rocket Lab, day goes by, 2 days, a week goes by, and it doesn't go over. It doesn't doesn't change over to Rocket Lab. And then they just one day just all disappeared into thin air. So that was my first investing experience with Rocket Lab. It was not fun, but I did my research for the first time, and what I found in the research really excited me. Obviously, risky,
Yeah.
but it was fun. And as an investor, you should probably invest in something that you're interested in, that is going to want to encourage you to do your own research, because as we all know, research can get very boring. But yeah, that was kind of the start of it, and really haven't looked back. Still investing. I'll buy tomorrow if I can afford it. Love the company. I think Peter Beck is brilliant, and so yeah, that's kind of what got me into it.
Yeah. So what I kind of want to steer it into. So really, we're looking at Rocket Lab, and look, me and you, Reese, were very, very guilty of this. We have been looking at it under the, I don't know, the everyday retail investors' eyes. First of all, we were looking at a very, very commercial business delivering payloads to orbit for commercial customers. We got blinded by the lights of maybe this customer for the reaction wheels is Amazon themselves. Then when I got talking to Christopher, he's more or less opened up my eyes into the military aspect of Rocket Lab. And the more and more down the rabbit hole I've dived, it just seems to be staring us straight in the face. This company is not as commercial as we think. I 100% agree that there is commercial aspects of the business and they will continue to grow commercially. However, I think Christopher, with his Haste Club and what he has brought to it, really opens up your eyes to this Haste is not just a bit of a, I don't know, a Mickey Mouse project.
Yeah.
This is a lot bigger than what the average retail investor actually thinks it is. And then I feel like, I don't know. I think the retail investor just doesn't know enough. Because it's all undisclosed and classified, it feels like the retail investor just wants to ignore that side and just, look, whatever we're being told, that is it, and that's 100% the way we're going to go. Christopher, how do you feel about the whole Haste program?
Well, it was something that was really easy to just overlook, even for investors like me. And what you said about Amazon, that's kind of what got me wanting to look a little bit deeper, because we didn't know where the big contract as far as the reaction wheels were going. And I've always been kind of one to go against the grain and try and look outside the box. Amazon, and it could still be Amazon. There's a lot of reasons I think that. But it got me thinking about the military side of it, because when you're going to space, you have to have either commercial clients or you have to have military clients. You gotta make money somehow. And the more I started looking at Haste, I was seeing small contracts here and there, but when you start kind of putting the dots together, you stand back and look at a bigger picture, and started to realize that there was a lot more to this than just a small little, maybe $2 or $3, $5 million government contract. This is going to grow into something a lot bigger. And not long at the same time, they were able to get permission to build and launch out of Wallops. I don't think that was a coincidence. Honestly, I think that Haste was kind of a contingency. Basically the military is like, hey, if you want to build a launch from here and build your neutron complex, you have to give something back in return. And that is how the U.S. government works.
Yeah.
That's just how it works. And so, yeah, some of it was based on theory. Some of it was based on, me just hoping, for lack of a better word. But a lot of it was based on research. And when they got the contract with the company out of Australia, Hypersonics, I started thinking even bigger and realizing that Haste can be basically sold as a program, whether they're using the Haste rocket or they're just using the Rocket Lab technology, their, all the systems that go into the rocket. Rocket Lab doesn't have to have a launch pad for Haste, in multiple countries. They can just sell the technology. They can sell all the info they have out of it, and then sell them all the components and the parts, and use the same sort of program the same way the U.S. military is using it. And so, yeah, I started talking with Francisco and a few other people, and it started to really make sense. And I said sometime, a few months back, that there's a really good chance that they'd be partnering up with the UK. And as we all know, just recently, that was a big announcement. And now they're making a bigger wave as far as the retail investor paying attention. It's now easier for people to see that, yeah, all these pieces are starting to come together. This has the potential to be a lot more than just, like I said before, random military launches.
Yeah. And then, speaking about that, the UK, guys, if you haven't seen it, Christopher called this all the way back in January, and people put it in there. This is why people need to open up their eyes a little bit more. He's done it through extensive research. He's done what the majority of retail investors are capable of doing. However, I feel like sometimes in a community when, as we say, things are classified, it feels like people want to shut that down, or if people have different opinions, they don't want to hear it. They just want to hear this big name and Glory Lights Amazon themselves. Reese, what are your thoughts on the Haste program?
I think, to be honest, at the moment, it's probably it's really reignited my love for Rocket Lab, because I feel at the moment, because it's unknown and not many people know about it, the stock price hasn't even sort of built in yet. And we've sort of seen some of these contracts and the size of them that could potentially come in. I'm thinking that this isn't just going to be like a small arm of the business. This is going to be making up at least probably half of the business. And it has the legs to become the major part of their business going forward. Like, I'm so excited at the moment. And we've only just found out about it. I find quite a little bit. It's almost as if like it was a glass shattering moment when I'd seen the dots, but I hadn't put them together. I was like, oh, yeah, get involved. But I never actually thought, oh, actually, why would they be getting that? Why are they getting an R&D grant or loan? I never thought, oh, it must be because they're going to be wanting to use them at a later date. So for me at the moment, I'm even more bullish than I was previously, and I was bullish before.
Yeah, and then this is something I want to sort of more or less flick back to Christopher. So I was diving in when I was doing the video yesterday around Neutron, and I feel like I done a bit of a deep dive into a contract that many people have more or less ignored. The fact that they had that 24 million contract back in, it was September 27th, 2021. They got a 24 million contract to more or less help develop the second stage of Neutron with the Space Force. The only other 3 providers that were awarded this contract were SpaceX, Blue Origin, and ULA. Now, why? Oh, and before I go on from that, they also mentioned back in 2021 about Neutron being part of the NSSL Lane 3 program. Now, I want to ask Christopher, why would the Space Force award them $24 million contract to develop Neutron if they have no intention of using them for the military?
Exactly. It also goes back to how do they get Wallops? That all kind of feeds in and ties in together as well. I've said it before, I'll say it a million times. You just don't just go and just ask to build Wallops isn't that easy. Their proximity to major military sites can become a danger. Not to mention DC and Baltimore and a lot of East Coast cities, they're really close. But what Rocket Lab with the Haste program, the military, you're not going to invest into a company and not get something in return. So I would think that the opportunities for Neutron are going to be really high. It's kind of hard to ignore that. It's just, there's no facts. There's nothing like, hey, Space Force is releasing this and that for Rocket Lab. But, they're partnering up with them. Actually, they partnered up with a lot of other companies, like the mailing complex they acquired, at least from Lockheed Martin. They got that for paying $1. And it just happens to be right down the street from Wallops. So I don't think this is something that Beck is just kind of piecing together and hoping the best for. I think this has been very well calculated and planned out years ahead of time.
Yeah, massively. And then, when we talk about the likes of Haste being the hypersonic accelerator suborbital test electron, I think some people think this is just involving the likes of Electron. But why couldn't it be the fact that maybe they can actually use these concepts they're learning from the Haste and actually apply it to Neutron? So we have the likes of the Victor's Haze mission. They say how they can, or they will need to be able to rapidly deploy the Haste to a specific orbital insertion. But these are all things that are part of the NSSL Phase 3 program, because I looked into that, and they want a specific thrust of a second stage rocket. They want a specific orbital insertion be able to be achieved, and they want a specific master orbit to be able to be achieved for critical security missions. Now, what came first, the chicken or the egg? I basically asked yesterday. Did Rocket Lab happen to produce the perfect rocket for the likes of the Department of Defense, the likes of the Space Force, or did the Space Force actually have a part to say in how Neutron was designed? And from what we found out yesterday, it was staring us straight down the face. It was back in 2021, the Space Force helped develop Neutron. Yeah. So what I really want to bring to the guys is I do not, and I don't want people thinking I think Neutron's only going to be a military rocket. I don't believe that. I do believe there will be contracts for commercial customers. I know there was a guy telling me yesterday to look into Samsung. They're on about doing a constellation. Look, I don't disagree with the fact that they're going to be commercialized. I can see it happening. They're going to be like a Falcon 9 type rocket, and they're going to do exactly what Falcon 9 have done.
Well, they do have a commercial client scheduled for 26. They haven't been named yet, but it is a technical client, and that is scheduled for sometime in 26.
And then, like, we got that announcement back 2 quarters ago. Reese, me and you were actually together at the time watching the earnings call, where they announced their ability to be able to put a human-grade capsule on Neutron. However, they said they weren't. It wasn't an announcement. They weren't in development. Christopher, is there anything you can build on this, on the potential for human spaceflight on Neutron?
Well, I know it would probably take about 10 years or more, whether they developed them themselves or they had to, get with another company and make modifications in Neutron, and be a pretty hefty investment. But Neutron, and a lot of people, that were investing early, they know this, but a lot of people don't. But Neutron was designed with the idea that manned missions would be possible. So it's not far-fetched to believe that. Peter Beck said, yeah, it's possible, but they're not planning on it. It's not something they have currently in production. But, as the years move forward and we get more of, there's more space stations planned for orbiting Earth. There's already one planned for the moon, which coincidentally just happens to be a Rocket Lab mission that's up there right now, the capstone. Rocket Lab launched that on its Electron. So as we move forward, next 10 or 15 years, there's going to be more of a demand for people going into space. From what I've read, right now they're doing about $5 billion in revenue for whoever's, sending people up, and they're expecting that to jump up to about 50 billion in the next 10 years. So it's not going away. I know it sounds far-fetched, but it's not. We didn't think that Elon could land rockets. Well, we're way past that now, and that's what we're doing with Neutron. It's going to be almost fully reusable. There's going to be there will be both commercial and military clients. And back to what you said as far as Haste and it being a test vehicle, I believe you're right in a lot of ways on that, because as I said before, Haste was probably a contingency. And what I mean by that, if they wanted to be able to prove to the U.S. government that they could not only, create this technology and pull these missions off, but they also wanted to get that money from the Space Force. And that's how you do it. You had to prove yourself to the U.S. government before they just start forking over money, especially if you're a small commercial company out of New Zealand. It's not as if this is Lockheed or Boeing that can just walk in there and demand billions of dollars and have a 10-year project. They're on a very tight timeline. I think we're 5-7 years, not a very long time since they started this thing. And so far right now we're looking at hopefully a fall launch.
Yeah. And then, by the way, I need to go a little bit off topic there. We need to get to that launch. That launch will be insane. We 100% have to be there. Guys, please let me know if you would like to see a Hustle Brother Haste Club collaboration at Wallops Island. I think that could be achieved quite easily. But then I want to sort of touch on as well, and this is touching on a bit between some of the live streams you've been putting out and some of the videos we've been putting out. So this is what I brought it to the guys yesterday. Do they believe that it is a coincidence that you have said it there, that Wallops is located this close to military sites? We have the likes of Lockheed Martin. Then we have acquisitions taking place, the like of Interplanetary Sinclair for the reaction wheels back in, I can't even remember when that was. But then we now have, before the selection for the NSSL, before the maiden launch of Neutron, we have now Flatellite quickly coming out. We now have the likes of Minoric, more or less being said they're going to acquire them. Why are all these acquisitions taking place that are just perfect for a military-grade constellation when people believe they're doing such a big deal with Amazon, yeah? But these same people believe that Rocket Lab will be going for a constellation like Starlink. And if they're going for a constellation like Starlink, why, like, on this Earth, would they be helping Kuiper become fully operational by supplying them with reaction wheels? What did you say it was, Reese? A 90% discount?
90% discount, yeah. So
Why
basically
would
giving
you
them
be allowing? Yeah, why would you be allowing Amazon? Like, look, I don't want to question Peter Beck. However, if you're allowing Kuiper to get up there before you, and then your actual vision is something like a SpaceX, or not a SpaceX, a Starlink type constellation, surely you're shooting yourself in the foot, not only by giving them a 90% discount, but also allowing them to get there before you. Reese, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's very similar to the fact that what Chris was saying there in terms of, like, if you want to work with the government, number one, you have to provide basically concepts and show that you're working to a high standard, you don't make any mistakes. And then the other thing will be, when you're doing deals, if you're going to get a major contract down the line, oh, actually, here you go, we'll do 90% off on these reaction wheels. Like, for me, I can't see why you would help a direct competitor. For me, it doesn't make sense. And if things don't sound like they make sense, there's usually an alternative. Like helping Amazon, even though I didn't know the numbers of, was it 3,426, sort of stack up with Amazon, that'd be the sort of numbers that they would be needing. That's the only two items where you're like, they sort of correlate. Yeah. But the rest of it, the actual politics around it, don't make sense. And I don't think Rocket Lab are going to be trying to give anyone a leg up, let alone one of the biggest competitors.
Yeah.
For me, none of it really adds up. And that's why I've seen this alternative that they might be doing it for military, for Haste and for that. It's kind of opened my eyes to the fact that it probably isn't giving Amazon a leg up.
Yeah, and guys, anyone that is here from the eVTOL side, I'll basically explain to you what a reaction wheel is, and this is going to be in layman's term. So any of Chris's guys that are into Rocket Lab and are big engineers, please don't butcher me on this. But from my understanding, what a reaction wheel basically does, it controls the attitude of the satellite. You normally have 4 of them on each side on commercial satellites. However, with a military satellite, you'd have 6 rather than 4. And the reason for this is you need a redundancy system. So just like your eVTOL aircraft, you need a redundancy system, you need more propellers than are actually required in case something goes wrong. With these satellites, you cannot have anything go wrong. These reaction wheels are going to be really strong against the likes of your radiation. You don't want much jittering happening, because if you think you need the accuracy for the satellite. Now, we've done a bit of a deep dive, and if you haven't seen it, jump across to it's part 2 of our series on why we don't think Amazon is the reaction wheel customer. But we've done a deep dive on what these reaction wheels are, and we've actually panned down to which reaction wheel we actually believe this is. And we're going to look at it from 2 sections. So a military-based satellite needs to be really strong against radiation, needs to have long life and durability, and it also needs to have the least amount of jitter. In comparison to your commercial constellation that needs to be more or less cheap and cheerful. It needs to more or less be cost effective and just needs to get the job done. Why would Amazon go after Rocket Lab's highest quality reaction wheel when they obviously, I think they had something like 12 of them on display that they could have had? It was also in perfect range for a military constellation. And people are saying the military wouldn't need the likes of 3,000 satellites, but when you put a redundancy system in place, it works out at about 1,500 satellites. So then again, we're back in the range for a military constellation. Chris, what do we think? Do you think it is Amazon? Or do you wholeheartedly believe it is going to be a military constellation they're going after?
You know what? You make a lot of good points. And we've talked about this a little bit before on Beck. And in the beginning, I wasn't quite sold on Amazon for a lot of the same reasons, many of the same reasons. It just didn't make sense. Now, you know, and that's a bear case. You can also argue at the same time, at the time of the acquisition, they were getting early in a Neutron and they did need to raise money. And Flatellite might not have even been on their minds at that time. So, you know, there's an argument to be made on either side.
Yep.
But it's fair to say that, well, I guess that one of the biggest things that got to me, and I understand there's NDAs and things that have got to be signed, but when you have a major company like Amazon and you have a popular company like Rocket Lab, on either side, you're a public company and you're trying your best to raise money for your company and your investors. And with such a large contract, it just surprised me that neither one of them made any sort of announcement. And I've heard an argument against that before about, well, you know, they don't want to announce, you know, anything about their maybe future competitors, because as we know, they will be now future competitors. But at the same time, SpaceX is launching them, Blue Origin is launching them, which, you know, I guess Blue Origin isn't a competitor because they are, you know, kind of Amazon in a way. But ULA, you have other competitors already launching them. You have already competitors that you've named. So that argument kind of didn't make sense. So as many of the good arguments I hear about Amazon, I'm hearing 2 or 3 more about the fact that it could be military. And one of those main reasons is the fact that we haven't heard anything about what it may or may not be. And it makes sense if it was military that they didn't release that because, as we know, they do a lot of things that are classified.
Yeah.
With the Haste, you know, rocket, lots of times we don't know about the mission until a day or two after they did the launch. They don't announce. They don't announce all their Haste launches because they're classified. So that's also, you know, a good point, a good possibility to go towards the idea that it's Amazon. I can see it going both ways, but it's very interesting when you step back and look at it if it is a military contract and what the possibilities of that would be going forward in the future.
Yeah, that's one thing I want to bring to the guys here. Like, if we are wrong, we will be the first. Look, we've been right on many occasions in the eVTOL space, but I'm not going to lie to you, we have been wrong on many occasions. But the one thing the guys will admit is we will always hold our hands up. I'll be the first to come out on X, come out on a live stream, be like, look, I shot down the wrong alley. But I think that's the fun of being a retail investor. And that's the fun about getting this community together. Because, look, me and Chris would be speaking every day on X. Me and Reese would be phone calling every day. And look, we agree on an awful lot of points. We can disagree on points. But again, as long as it's respectful, we never care about feedback from each other. And I think that's the same when it comes to the likes of comments and things like that. Never be afraid to call us out when we are wrong or you feel like we're wrong. But please, we're soft little people. Don't go in with the hate. But no, another point I want to bring to that is me and Reese then done a dive into, okay, so we're talking about the military and they need like their constellation for their missile alerts and stuff like that. So then we started looking into, okay, so what contractors could actually provide the military with this amount of reaction wheels? So then we looked at Honeywell, and Honeywell actually had a scandal back in, was it 2010? Do I want to say, where there was a grease leak in their reaction wheels. So then we were sort of thinking that, like, would the military want to be working with the likes of Honeywell for a contract this large when the wheels could be prone to leaking and failing? So whether you have a redundancy system or not, it doesn't really matter at that stage, because if you hammer together something with glass nails, it's just not going to work, is it? What's your thought?
100%. I think the fact that they had such a well-known scandal, I think that would have scared off a lot of the military, and the fact that they would have tried to vet them. There is a possibility as well, obviously, the fact that 2010 was 15 years ago now. So there's I imagine they've ironed out the kinks that they had. But it does sort of align with that 90% discount, with the fact that Chris is mentioning here about the level of secrecy that they would be under with the contract with the military. There's a lot of coincidences here. Like, there's obviously a chance that these are just completely by accident and a complete coincidence, but there's too many things that seem to steer in one direction. And like, if we are wrong and there is something we've missed, make sure you guys jump in the comments, correct us, show us the error in our ways.
I hate more than I can, so like.
No, at the end of the day, I just want to know, and if there is information that I've put the blinkers on, I can't see, I'm more than willing to like hold my hand up, as you said, and admit to it. But like, at the moment, the only thing that I can really justify in my mind of making sense would be again the military grade for that deal.
Yeah, like 90% discount just seems like an awful lot, and I completely agree with Chris. They need to have proof of concept, and they also have to, like, at that time they needed to raise money for Neutron. But I don't know, the more I went down that rabbit hole, I was like, do you know what, it seems to be too obvious. But then at the same time, like, Rocket Lab are known for Peter saying, we do what we say we're going to do. So do they want to just more or less achieve the fact that they can make all these reaction wheels and then come out? Like, we don't know. Is it classified from Rocket Lab side?
Well, it's a fun, I mean, it's a very fun topic, and it's like you said, the rabbit hole. I went down it, you went down it, and even people that have doubted me on just the concept that doubted, they went down it too, just because it's fun, right? I mean, if you're an investor and you're really into Rocket Lab, you should be having fun with it and looking at all aspects, because Beck has surprised us in the past. Obviously, he's a lot smarter than I am because he runs a rocket company, and I'm out here on a kayak talking to you guys. But that's kind of why I use this approach, and I do this kind of format, because there's a lot to can be discussed about Rocket Lab. There's a lot of fun things that they're doing. There's also a lot of things that get overlooked really easy, like the Haste when it first got started. Some of the details about Neutron, especially for the new investors, it's easy for those of us that's been in for a long time to just kind of take it for granted, overlook it, and never really discuss it again. But to me, again, I like the company a lot. It's just fun to discuss. So whether it's an Amazon discussion, whether it's a Haste discussion, I don't take it all too seriously. I really don't. I am an investor, so I do take the money part seriously. Don't get me wrong on that. But I like being wrong. I tell people, look, if I'm wrong, please tell me, because if there's something more that I can learn, great. You just helped me out.
But that's the thing. Like, I think what people need to sort of like take their blinkers off sometimes and realize, like, we are all retail investors. Like, none of us are right all the time. If not, we'd be sitting on the board of Rocket Lab, because like, you could go to many creators and they will be telling you every day they're right and this is what they've done and they know everything and they're never wrong. But look, I don't want to be that guy. Like, I want someone from the community to be able to come to me and be like, look, you've been wrong with this and this is the right thing. And then we can bring it out and we can share it to more and more people. Like, I can only say for ourselves, when it came to the likes of the eVTOL space, so any of you guys that don't know, we're quickly growing in the electric vertical takeoff and land space with the likes of Archer and Joby Aviation. And with that, there's a lot less information when you compare it to Rocket Lab. And what we found, what more or less grew our community, what more or less, I don't know, helped us be able to project contracts before they come out, is the fact that we all came together. So you might have Steve down the road might know something about some news that is happening, but then you might have Jeff over here that is bulletproof when it comes to charts. Then you might have another man that comes to fundamentals. Me and Race, and I think I can now say for yourself, Chris, like, we're here to take all this information, not only what we have found out ourselves, but what everyone brings to us, and more or less convey it to the layman. Because I think Chris touched on it earlier on. Like, research can be boring, so why not make it fun? Why not come on a live stream on a kayak or something like that? Like, we're all people. Like, there's no point us all sitting there being behind a screen stalking Rocket Lab. And look, the likes of Christopher might be a lot more up to scratch than me when it comes to the military side. And then the likes of Reese might be much better at charts than me. But when I can bring the two of these guys together and we can sort of convey it back to the retail investor, and the larger the community grows, the more we'll be able to convey back to people and sort of connect the dots. Because one of you guys in the comments might turn around and say, look, you're missing this point. It might blow our argument completely out of the water. Like, if you've seen a box go into Rocket Lab and it says Amazon on it, I think...
Oh, look, brother, you guys...
Yeah,
you know, I talk to Francisco on a regular basis, and while it might seem like him and I agree on everything, we don't. And that's where we get a lot of our knowledge from, is the fact that we get along great and we have no problem correcting the other person, obviously in a very, friendly and kind way. But if I was right every single time, I think it would start to get boring, to be honest with you.
If I was right every time, you wouldn't be on a kayak, you'd be flying in a private jet.
That might be boring too. I really enjoy what I'm doing.
I want to give a shout out, actually. Yeah, WHP, one of the guys in a live stream the last day. This was actually wild, yeah. So we're on the live stream the last day, and he reckons he closed this deal, and he was flying in a business class or a private jet or whatever, and he was watching us. And I thought, that is mad, yeah. But I kind of forgotten about it. And then I went into Discord the last day and he sent a picture of like his dinner, the screen, and like a picture of us on the eVTOL Weekly. And I was like, do you know what? This is so crazy that I can be sitting here in Ireland. You can be sitting there in London. Christopher, what part of the US are you from, Christopher?
I'm in a small town. I'm right on the East Coast in Virginia.
Virginia? Yeah,
I'm on... I guess the closest, biggest body of water would be the York River or Chesapeake Bay. Yeah, the Chesapeake Bay, and the Eastern Shore, which houses Wallops and all of Mars and the space complex. That is about a 4-hour drive, but maybe about a 1-hour boat ride. It's almost directly across from me. But yeah, small town, really small town. We don't even have a stoplight out here, man. It's really laid back.
But that's what I found wild. Like, we can be in 3 different parts of the world, and we're using all 3 of our brains to try and collaborate and come up with like different avenues we can look down. And it's going to help all 3 of us. And like, look, what do we have? 21 people there watching. It'll help you guys too. And the more involved you get,
Yeah.
I think investing, that is the one thing I think I've learned, is the more involved you get, the better of an investor you become. Like, you have, you can sit there and you can try and take it all in. But if you start asking questions or you disagree with us and we can come back and give you a counterpoint, or look, we might hold our hands up, we all come up with a better solution. Who's this? Sean Neal, reaction wheels. SpaceX, due to their problems with prior reaction wheels, current volume, upgraded satellites, private company can silence suppliers. Military hasn't decided on constellations. So, wait a minute. Reaction wheels, SpaceX, due to their problems with prior. So, Sean Neal here believes that SpaceX is the confidential customer. Is there any thoughts on that, guys? What do you think? Do you think SpaceX could be part of it? Because he has said that they've had problems with their prior reaction wheels, and with their current volume and their upgraded satellites, the private company can send suppliers.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree. Okay, so just a few things here. First, no offense if it's information I don't know about as far as problems with the reaction wheels. Please send me something I can look up on that, because the last I heard, Rocket Lab's reaction wheels were the best in the world. So if there's an issue with that, as an investor, I would really like to know about that. I'm not questioning whether you're right or wrong. As far as SpaceX, I actually read a pretty good post today on X that made a lot of sense to me, that I really haven't had a lot of time to think about, but it was one of our friends that are big into ASTS. Okay. And he made an argument as to why ASTS would be involved in the Golden Dome for the U.S. space defense. And the point that really got to me was the fact that this really hit me hard is that it's going to have to be a joint effort from multiple different companies. The idea of it just being a SpaceX or just being an ASTS or a Rocket Lab is not feasible for what they have in, planned for such a large, military defense style constellation. So when I do hear things like, hey, it's not going to be this, it's not going to be that, I don't tend to disagree, but it was a good point. It was a good point, and it does make a lot of sense. Rocket Lab did over 30-something% of what was launched into space last year had Rocket Lab somewhere in it. Just getting a piece of that pie would be big for a company like Rocket Lab. I mean, we got to remember they're still small. I think sometimes we put some really high expectations because they do, as you said earlier, if they say they're going to do something, they do it. So it's easy to get, a little overexcited. It's easy for me, especially, to dream a little bit too far outside the box. But that's kind of the fun part, in my opinion. Like you said, if you're going to invest in something you're interested in and you want to learn more about. And again, like I said, man, if you know something about
that's it. If I know advice, that is the one thing that you can take from us. Just don't invest in them.
I would definitely agree with that. Definitely.
Oh no! So we'll bring a story to you. So this is brutal. Yeah, you're gonna look at the Hustle Brothers differently now, guys. Yeah. So we were very naive. Back when we were investing in Virgin Galactic originally, and we were watching a YouTuber, and guys, this is exactly why you never, ever follow any YouTuber when it comes to financial advice or anything like that. So we were following this guy in a live stream, and he made quite a bit of money on Virgin Galactic, and he was telling us to leverage up. And I think we actually made quite a bit on the first. It was around the first launch or something like that. So we leveraged up to the full. We let them hang. Yeah. And he was going, right, it was gonna 10x or something like that. And we were like, sure of it. And literally, as it went up, he sold out. Yeah. And he didn't tell us till after the thing that he had sold out. So he had made money. He more or less done a rug pull on us. But me and Reese blew up our account literally within, I don't know, 30 seconds. Yeah. So then me and Reese thought, you know what? There's a way to get out of this. So we started like looking at all different companies. So we started looking at the likes of Nikola, Tilray, the likes of them. Yeah, we're leveraging up to the full. Yeah. So I think we pumped another 10K or so each into the thing. We're like, do you know what? If we just like go hell for leather on leverage. And do you know what? Long story short, we stopped investing for a good 3 months with the view of never investing again.
Yeah.
Because if one thing you can take from the hustle, brothers, do not touch that thing. Do not touch leverage. And do not ever, ever, ever follow financial advice by some guy on a camera. You can listen to the likes of us. You can help it in your own thesis, your own research. Because, look, we all know different things. Like, Christopher comes with really good points. We're making some points here. But look, none of us work for Rocket Lab, so none of us know anything for sure. But never take what we say. Like, we had it there, was it 4 or 5 weeks ago? Archer. He started accusing us of trying to get him to buy Archer, and he ends up losing a lot of money. We said at no point, you can look at any of our videos, we have never ever told anyone to buy or sell a stock. And we'll say the same with Rocket Lab. We'll always say, look, we're looking at buying again tomorrow. But I'm not saying that's the right idea. Like, we can't predict the future. Me and Reese would not be sitting here, and Christopher would not be sitting there if we knew exactly what the market is going to do, because we'd have no need to like be coming on and asking each other all these questions if you for certain knew what was happening. And I think that's what's so exciting about this whole project is the fact that we're all open. We don't particularly know everything we're talking about when it comes to what Rocket Lab are going to do next. But together, we feel like we can get a better understanding of what's happening. And sometimes it's nice at the end of a week being, I don't know, whether it's a good week, it's like a post-mortem, because I think sometimes people believe they're Warren Buffett after a massive week. And they think, look, I knew this was happening. Or they could think they're the worst retail investor going because they've lost all this money. But always remember, guys, you have made a financial decision at a certain moment in time with the information you had at that time. So that was the right decision at that time for you. So it's nice to sometimes have a post-mortem. So like if I make a bad decision, or say I go and buy Rocket Lab on the fact that I believe that it could be military style and all this, and it comes out tomorrow that it's Amazon. No, that's a bad thing, because if it comes out and it's Amazon, the stock price will go through the roof anyway. But like if it comes out and they say it's something else, like I'm going off the information I have now, but at least I can come to the likes of Christopher and Reese and be like, look, this is why I made this decision. And they can sort of help me in a rationale on what to do next, like in my own frame of mind. What are your thoughts on that, Chris?
Yeah, you're exactly right. And it goes back to just overall research and why I do what I do. Because, again, I did the whole Virgin Galactic thing. I listened to everybody on YouTube because obviously they knew more than me because they were already investors. And some of these guys, you'd make them, they could see the future if you really wanted to believe them.
Yes. I think we're talking about the same guy.
Yeah. So I made all the wrong decisions, and I continue to make more and more wrong decisions because I didn't take the time to learn just some of the basics. Whether you're giving financial advice or not, one of the most basic things is, again, do your own research before you just jump in and especially go on leverage or anything like that. Because what's going to happen is, the stock markets on a day-to-day, they're going to go up and down and up and down and up and down. And you can have good weeks, you can have bad weeks. And a lot of times what will happen is someone will they'll buy a stock just based on someone else's advice or some video they saw, and they'll start making a little money, so they'll put more money into it. The next week it drops off a cliff and they sell, they take a loss, and it's because they don't have real confidence in that stock. Whereas with a company like Rocket Lab, I know guys that were buying 15, 17, 18 when it dropped all the way back down to 4. They didn't sell, they bought more. That's what I did. And as much as you want it to skyrocket when you're buying a bunch of shares in 4 and it just it jumps up and comes right back, that's just the market. This is it for most people. I would say look at stocks more in the long term, as far as a long-term investment. If you're just hoping you're going to get in and get lucky and make lots and lots of money in the next week or two, well, if it's that easy, then why aren't we all doing it? Like you said earlier, if those guys on YouTube are always right, there'd be millionaires and billionaires on every street corner.
Yeah, 100%. Like,
that's just
I think, do you know when the market's down? I think everyone feels like this too. Like when, say, Rocket Lab's trading at like $30 or something like that, you think, oh yeah, it's amazing, and you want it to get back to that level. And then when it's at that level, you're like, oh, I wish it was back at the $4 range so I could have had more. Or even if it drops to, I don't know, 20, I'm going to load up more. But then when it comes down to 20, people then change that. And they're like, do you know what? They go down to 10 and I'll add up more. And I feel like we're at that stage at the moment where we're starting to see a nice bit of a rise again. And people are now afraid that what if it goes any lower again, and they're not buying under the conviction they have. Look, this is not financial advice, but I just believe that we know Neutron's around the corner. We said it could be around, I think he called it fall, don't you? We call it autumn over here. We believe that's going to start launching. And look, we know Neutron is going to move. Now, I said the exact same thing with Archer and Joby Aviation when they get certification. It would not surprise me one bit on the day of the launch if we get the stock price coming up, and next thing you get a bit of a rug pull from some of your big institutes. Because what they're trying to do, they're going to try and pull the stock price down. Then you're going to get any of these like people that are not that clued in Rocket Lab. They're going to try and just bite you. So what's going to happen is the stock price is going to drop. Then you'll get retail then selling off a little bit because it didn't skyrocket like they believe it will. And then you'll get your big institute the following day or 2-3 days later, come buy back in, and away we go. We're up again. It happens every single time. The institutes will always make it work in their favor when it comes to big news coming out. Like if we're expecting it to go up on Neutron, it will go up on Neutron, and it will go up the following week after Neutron. It will keep, but just don't get scared when you don't see us just sky to the moon and don't expect any pullbacks. There will be pullbacks along the way, but honestly,
well, I was asked a really good question recently from a friend of mine, and he said, well, what are you going to do if you go to the launch party and everything goes wrong and it actually blows up, or something major happens? What would you do as an investor? I thought about it, but it didn't take but a second. I said I would be ready to buy more the next day when it dropped, because it's not like they're not going to fix the problem. I mean, they've had 1 or 2 bad launches with Electron in the past. It is rocket science. It's not easy. But again, they've overcome everything to date. And, if you're going to invest in a company, you better believe in them through the good and the bad, and take advantage. That's the best time to take advantage of it, build your share count. But yeah, it could go bad. I'd hate to go out there and have people all hyped up and thinking, yeah, this thing's going to be great, and they're going to be, launching 20 rockets in 5 years or more. We don't really know. We can't know, like Reese was saying earlier. But, yeah, I think it's as an investor, sometimes I think it's smart to always consider worst case scenario,
Yeah.
and then decide, hey, is this something I really believe in, or is this just some hype, something I saw in the news that I think I can make a quick buck on? You know, some people do great. Some people, I mean, I day trade from time to time. I'm not gonna lie. Not something I recommend to everybody because it's not for your average investor. But there's nothing wrong with taking profits and making $1 or whatever. But as far as if you're going to invest in a company like Rocket Lab, definitely do your research because it is a long-term hold. It is a very long-term hold.
And that's why I get afraid when I see investors coming into Rocket Lab and they're only talking about Neutron, and Neutron is all they can see. Because I think they feel like, yes, we're going to get the launch on Neutron. Look, nothing saying it's going to be successful. I believe it, it probably will be successful first time. However, like, even if it is successful first time, then the following year, we might get 2 or 3 neutrons out. Like, I think some people are putting all their eggs in one basket because of Neutron, and I think that's where we start having to look at the likes of Electron, having to look at the likes of your space systems, having to look at the likes of Haste and where that's going. And I think once you start believing in the likes of the Haste program and stuff like that, Neutron is then just another string to the bow when it comes. I don't think you should invest in the company just because of Neutron alone. What's your thoughts on that, Ray?
Yeah, no, I think putting all your eggs in one basket obviously isn't the best way to be investing. And yeah, I want to just reiterate you guys' points of, I think you need to be in it for the long term. I think that's one of the cardinal sins that we found out with doing our leverage, because everyone wants to be a millionaire tomorrow. Like, if there was a way to do it and there was no risk, then perfect. But similar to what you're saying about that, like the larger investors, let's say, there is some sort of market manipulation after a bit of news is given, because the news is always sold and the price drops. So if you've got a 10% buffer on your leverage, you're going to be wiped out straight away. And then that's all your chips. The chips that you're playing in this game to try and get yourself to be comfortable later in life have now gone. So don't be greedy would be the piece of advice that I've learned myself, and I think every new investor that is joining would have to be following. And then just have that broader outlook.
Yeah, so Commander Shepard says that's why you buy shares and calls so you can sell for profits and add shares, and puts to hedge yourself when it goes down to add more shares again. That's my strategy. And look, that is a nice strategy to hedge yourself against any scenario that may occur. I genuinely, this is me being a little bit naive. This is me being a hand on heart, your average retail investor. I don't touch options. I don't short. All I ever do is just buy the stock. And I honestly believe you just keep accumulating in a company that, look, it doesn't have to be Rocket Lab. It can be Virgin Galactic if Virgin Galactic succeeds. Yeah, but it could be anything. If you honestly believe in the company, you have a rationale of why you believe in the company, and that company does succeed, and we can see with the likes of Rocket Lab, Peter Beck has always said they do what they say they're going to do. And look, they've always proved us right. I just think there's no reason why you just... Look, that is an unbelievable strategy that you use there, Command Shepard, and good luck to you using it. However, my strategy is always going to be plain and simple. I also, I think this is with everything, and I think Christopher will agree with me here. Like, everything we do, look, even when it comes to growing our channel, when it comes to even the format of this, you see Christopher's having a great time while being with us. Simplify absolutely everything. Don't make anything too complex. Once you start adding complexity to anything, that's when things can start going wrong. And my philosophy when it comes to investing is always, and I think any of our eVTOL guys here will quote me on this because they call it to me every time, it's be like a shark. Yeah, so on your red days you feast. When there's blood in the water, you feast. You just buy more. When it's green, it's all going swimmingly, you do nothing. However, if you're entirely long term and you can see it next 30, 40 years, it doesn't matter. Red, green day, just keep accumulating as much as you can. However, don't put yourself starving. Where I seen one guy where he's buying every day and he's eating, is it beans or something for the next week? And I thought, I want to be rich. However, I don't want it that badly. Like,
Yeah.
I am not gonna like absolutely destroy my quality of life now for the what if, because like you don't know what can happen to anything. Like, and I think you brought a good point before, Reese. Like, and Christopher said it earlier on this stream. Don't be afraid to take profits, because this is
Yeah.
what we all do it for, guys. Like,
The lifetime tips.
people are lying to me if they've invested and they've never, ever taken profits. Like, there's a reason why you're investing. However, I don't agree with like selling your whole position and like just wanting to jump back in at a lower price, because you can never guarantee that a lower price will come. Like, if Rocket Lab come out tomorrow and say, look, that reaction wheel contract was Amazon, look, I don't think we're sitting at this level then. Or if they come out and say,
you know, it's similar to what the agreement I have now. So Chris, in our eVTOL stream, like we basically called this at the beginning of the year because we'd reached all-time highs. We were 300% plus up, and it was obvious at some point we were going to get a pullback. And like my head was telling me that we should really be selling off 20%, and then when it goes back lower, you can get more shares. But my heart was saying we can double again. And I thought we were going to hit to the $20 mark, and so for some reason the head doesn't. The heart gets more of a say than the head, and I stuck in, and now we're back down similar sort of levels where we were before. So I think next time
you have an agreement, don't you? You have an agreement with one of the
Cole,
of the viewers. He's more or less going to be the hitman. So Cole is going to call out to Reese when we're 20% up from the all-time high,
and I have to take it out.
Reese has to take 20% profit.
Well, that tends to happen, right? Though, I mean, sometimes I think we can get a little too personal with our companies, especially when you do that much research. You allow your emotions to control your buying or selling. And I'll have to admit this, and it wasn't done because I knew anything. It was done because I wasn't expecting everything to cost as much. I'm an idiot, but my son's wedding, like I said, I told you guys before, I got married in January. So and I was having some health issues, and it was just a lot of stuff was just happening all at once. So I was like, I got to sell. And I pretty much had to sell out, not completely, but I had a handful of shares afterwards, and I did sell at 32. I didn't do it because I knew it was at the top. I did it because I had to, and I couldn't have got more lucky. But that's what it was. It was pure luck. I wish I could say I knew it, but you never know when the top's going to be. You can never really plan the bottom. That's why it's always best to just kind of dollar cost average on, like you said, take your profits. Nothing wrong with it. We have bills, or we got weddings, or we have things that come up, but that's what it's there for. And don't look at it as a negative. Look at it like, hey, at least I have it now, because then I'd have to go and do something else to make it happen. But yeah, we can easily fall in love with our companies and not make the best decision when it comes to the profit side of it.
I have a story about Rocket Lab, and this is brutal. Yeah, so I always remember the date. It was August. No, it was July 31st and August 1st. Yeah, so my father died, and then the funeral was coming up, and this, that, and the other. And I remember Therese, it was Rocket Lab as well. So Rocket Lab's price at that time was $3.98.
Yeah, it dropped massively.
And so like I was down. However, I said to Reese, I was like, look, I'm gonna have to sell my position. I could see it. I didn't think this much of a run up was gonna happen, but I could see it at least doubling over the winter. And I remember Reese turning to me and saying, there's no way you're selling Rocket Lab. And do you know what? If I sold out at that time and took a loss on Rocket Lab, and I seen where it is today, I actually think I would have quit investing. 100%. I would have quit
Yes.
100%.
Yes, that happens a lot, though. That happens with a lot of investors, though. It does happen, unfortunately. It's not. It's not for everybody. It really isn't. My brother, who is in many ways a lot smarter than me, if you guys start following me, you'll realize that Chris just don't care. He just goes with life. My brother is brilliant, but he never invested in. As I said, I do day trade from time to time. Some of the stuff, again, I did lose money investing in the beginning, but once I started doing my own research and started teaching myself, I got pretty good at it. So he would actually send me money on a monthly basis to invest for him. After some time, I finally got him to just start looking into Rocket Lab because he's just like me, big space nerd and everything. Well, it turns out the company he works for sells parts and systems to a company that sells parts and systems to Rocket Lab. So he's connected in a way down the chain, but got him more interested. And he finally bought in, I think around 21. And he's just like us in a lot of ways, though. He did his own research, and he's like, I wish it would go to 4 again. I would just buy a whole lot more. He said it's not, where they're at today. He said in a lot of ways they're ahead of schedule from what most other companies. I mean, there's a lot of companies out there that try to get off the pad, that try to make it to space. There was a recent one that was just out of Norway. Again, we know all about Astra and their sideways rocket. It's not easy. So it's fair to say that even though we're waiting on Neutron and we're waiting on Rocket Lab to do all these amazing things, it's really easy to overlook what they're already accomplishing. And again, a very short amount of time. So yeah, he got in, and you couldn't get that guy. You'll have to pry those shares out of his dead hands. He's not giving them up. And it's fun now. It's fun, of course, him being my brother. We talking about it more often. But you got to have the conviction. You got to know more about it than just what the guy on YouTube told you yesterday. Because if not, you're going to make that mistake. Luckily, you didn't. Thankfully, for you, for sure.
Guys, one thing I really want to ask you, and now the only thing here is with X, I am currently not seeing any comments come through X. There's something up with streaming at the moment, so it's only coming through YouTube, the comments. But any of the guys on YouTube, please let us know if you want to see more of us collaborating with Chris. I think, Chris, this is game changing. I think the project we could have here, talking about not only the military side of Rocket Lab, I think we can talk about everything Rocket Lab, but it's the approach we can take behind it. It's the fact that we can convey it to the retail investor. Look, we're not claiming to be specialists. None of us are claiming to be specialists, but we're all going to talk to each other. We're going to talk to people we believe are in the know in comparison to us. And I think the larger we can grow this community, the larger as Reese said it, the hive mind becomes. I just think with this company, look, we would not be doing a stream on a company we didn't believe in. Put it that way. Like, we are 100% bullish on it. We've said to our eVTOL guys, you can go back to eVTOL Weekly 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. We said our largest position is in Rocket Lab, and our biggest or our highest conviction is Rocket Lab. But we are passionate about eVTOLs. And the fact that, Chris, you have given us the opportunity to actually come into this Rocket Lab space. Like, guys, thinking about it, like, it's so hard to come across into this Rocket Lab space. Yes, we have quite a big following when it comes to eVTOLs, but none of you guys knew who we were. And with the approach me and Reese take is we always try and convert back to the layman, to the average retail investor. And we try and get everyone on board and then bring all the information together and then get it back to the retail investor. And the fact that, Christopher, from day one, you have took us under your wing, the information you provide us with, the fact that you're there every day that we can speak to you, guys, honestly, I genuinely feel like if you haven't followed Christopher on X, you have to get across there. Like, that is now a must if you're in this Rocket Lab community, because the information he provides, like, it's not like us where we can schedule a live stream and look, it could be a week in advance. We have eVTOL Weekly to come on every Tuesday. Christopher just goes live. Like, he gets information, he just goes live like that. Like, I want to like say to you, Chris, I actually commend you. Like, I look up to the fact that you're able to like basically let it hang. Like, you don't care what people think. You just go out there and you're like, right, I have.
Well, it's easy when you don't think you're going to have more than 3 or 4 people that you normally talk to on X every day anyway. When you start getting more people watching, then you start realizing that, hey, sometimes I just sound like an idiot. But, you know, I wanted it to be different. I wanted to be more fun and laid back. Investing can be stressful. I'm not a numbers guy. The numbers just bore me. I have people that will fact check me and give me all the numbers in the world if I ask them. They're really kind about that. I do get help from other people, like you guys said, but I just didn't want to be that type of live stream. And I wanted people to be able to just kind of come on here, especially for the newer investors. Yeah, there's a lot of guys out there that's been in Rocket Lab as long as I have or soon after, but there's also a lot of new investors that are getting into it. And like you said before, primarily because of Neutron. And I can understand that's a really cool looking rocket. It's sexy, launches sell. But what, you know, some of the newer investors might not even realize is that if they weren't spending the money on Neutron, Rocket Lab would already be a profitable company.
Yeah.
Mostly just because of their space systems. But Electron is also technically profitable, as well as Haste, if they weren't putting all the money into Neutron, spending all the money on R&D. So that's kind of important to know. And again, that's why I'm doing a lot of this. And I do go over some stuff that a lot of other guys have known about for months or years. And then sometimes I do get into some newer information that a lot of people would either not know or consider to be a little controversial, because that's always fun. But again, it's not for those investors that have 60,000 shares and already have 2 or 3 houses. It's for people just like me that, you know, you go to work every day and you know, it's maybe not what you want to sit there and do and listen to a bunch of numbers. And there's already platforms for that. There's people that do that very well. And believe me, I watch them, I go to them, and you know, they put in a lot of work and it's very appreciated. But we don't need 15 channels of stuff like that when we already have, you know, other options, especially when it's something that, again, like I said, it's not the aspect of any company that really gets me going. Yeah, we need to know what their profit margins are. I worry all about that during conference calls. I don't really pay attention to a lot of that stuff throughout the months. Again, not financial advice. That's not financial advice. But again, it's not meant to be financial advice. It's just meant for people to come on, relax for 45 minutes to an hour, discuss their favorite stock, and, you know, catch me if I'm wrong, please, and just have fun. That's all it really is. I don't take it all too serious. I hope I never do. It's just, you know, different approach. It's just a lot different approach. Not for everybody. I get it. Some people want that, you know, day-to-day exact fact, exact number. I get it. It's just not what we do here. But so far so good. People seem to enjoy it.
Yeah, like, I honestly, like, I'm going to bring this across the Rocket Lab space. We have Matt Money, when's the Lambo? Mate, you have plenty of money. You could buy me a Lambo. No, honestly, mate, I would love to collab with you. So reach out to us on X and we can get that underway, because there's a lot of information that you could provide with us. And I think that'd be a nice collaboration. And even if you want to come on one of these, with no problem at all. Yeah, but 100%. What I want to say is, like, looking across the Rocket Lab space, we have the 4 juggernauts. Yeah. and they each bring something different to the table, and I love it. And this is why what we're doing here is nothing like what the other guys are doing, and I don't want it to be like the other guys are doing. Like, we can look at the likes of Scott O. He is unbelievable when it comes to the likes of your numbers and your contracts, getting all that over the line. We have Matt Money with the Cash Flow Chronicles, he's best known for, and like his opinion when it comes to like your options, bringing the information to Rocket Lab, that is valuable. We have Vince, who I think everyone loves Vince, and he has built that community, he has built that stream. Then you have Dave, who specializes in that whole space sector, and he's doing his own thing there. But what we are trying to grow here is completely different. With, look, you're not looking at two experts up at the top of the screen, and then Christopher has openly said that he is not an expert when it comes to like absolutely everything Rocket Lab. But we want to bring a different approach to this, and I want it to be where, look, we can hear what anyone else says, what any of you guys say in the comments, and if we don't know the answer, because I'm going to be dead honest with you, we've said this in the VTOL streams, like, if I don't know an answer, I'm not going to swear because it's on Chris's X, but if we don't know the answer, I'm not going to beat around the bush and make up some answer. If I don't know the answer, I'll say I don't know the answer, and I'll make a video on the answer if I can find it. And if I can't find it, I'll be dead honest with you and just be like, I don't know. Because I think we're too sort of, I don't know, cultured to the way that some channels, we can say the likes of, what is his name? What's the bald guy for that news channel that we go on about the whole time? Who's that guy that we were on about the last day race? Do you know he's a controversial character. He's part of one of the news channels.
What?
The American fella.
A huge news channel, or like?
Yeah, he's big.
Oh, Keemstar.
You what?
Keemstar is the one that's like over everything, but that's not really.
What is his name? Let me look him up. You guys will all know him as well.
I don't watch the news.
He's controversial about stocks and stuff. The bald guy. Oh, I forget his name anyway. But we're not like him, where we're just gonna make up news just to get a bit of excitement out of people by trying to short the stock or something like that. Guys, please let me know if you want to see this on a weekly basis. Guys, if you haven't, make sure to follow Chris on X. And guys, we are the Hustle Brothers. This is the Haste Club. Make sure to bang that subscribe button. And boys, I'll speak to you next week.
Speak to you next week, mate.
Sounds great. Looking forward to it.
Right.
Thanks, guys.
See you, Chris.
See you, Chris.
Cheers. Cheers.